Welcome to my wedding venue. Hello, I'm Eliza, a disabled content creator from London. I create content all about disability, lifestyle things, and LGBTQ+ positivity. And this is where I got married. On a slightly rainy September morning last year, I got married here at Brookfield Barn in Horsham in West Sussex with 4 bridesmaids around me, all dressed in hot pink. But as you can see, I am a wheelchair user, which means that I needed to plan an accessible wedding. I had no idea where to start, so today we're going to chat about all the things that I was looking for as a disabled person getting married and chat about the accessibility of our wedding. We didn't just have one wheelchair user attending the wedding, we had not 2, not 3, not 4, but 7 wheelchair users attending the wedding. So accessibility came pretty top at the list when it came to picking our wedding venue. And we visited lots of different venues that simply just didn't meet the accessibility requirements that we needed until we found Brookfield. But let's chat about some of the things that we were looking for when booking our venue when it came to accessibility and meeting our needs. Location and transport. So we knew that we wanted to get married and have a wedding that was in a barn. We wanted the location to feel secluded and like it was our own little space for the day. And we didn't want to worry about somebody else like stumbling upon our wedding, which could easily happen in a busier place like in a city. But we also wanted the venue to be near a train station and near locations that were easy to stay at and had accessible hotels and things like that. We also wanted the location to be near London so that we could easily get to the venue and the majority of our guests could easily come to the venue just for the day and wouldn't need to stay the night or anything. And most of our family and friends are based in London, and so most people could just come for the day. We knew that the station that was near the venue also needed to be wheelchair accessible, as many of our guests that were coming via train were wheelchair users. Horsham and Brookfield offered this as they have a wheelchair accessible station just 10 minutes away from the venue. We were also able to organise lifts from our lovely friends and family from the station to the venue so that we didn't need to worry about anybody getting lost, and then the guests that needed to get back to the station at the end of the night were able to pre-book taxis and nobody had any issues coming to and from the venue. Unfortunately, not all train stations are wheelchair accessible, so it took us quite a while and a fair amount of research to be able to find a location that had a wheelchair accessible station somewhat near it. Step-free. Now, of course, our wedding venue needed to be step-free and easy for wheelchair users to be able to navigate around. This was our #1 accessibility feature that we needed to hit, which was much harder than you would think. We didn't want wheelchair users to have to go through a strange back entrance in order to be able to get into the building, and we didn't want to have any temporary ramps on the day either. We went to many different venues, and many of which we were told were step-free, but when we actually arrived, they were actually not step-free at all. This was so frustrating as it was just a waste of time for us to attend in the first place. We loved our venue because they have permanent ramps in place and they were just part of the whole venue and setup, along with lifts to be able to get to areas of the building that did have steps. There is a real lack of step-free wedding venues in the UK, and many venues that are step-free don't even list it on the website, which is something that should definitely change, as listing accessibility means that couples and guests can know what to expect before attending. Somewhere to stay. Now, as someone who has a lot of fatigue when it comes to my day-to-day life, I knew that my wedding would be full on. So having somewhere to stay on site was very important to me because I didn't want to be worrying about getting to a different location after a long and tiring day. Finding somewhere that was step-free and also had accessible accommodation was very difficult. Luckily, our venue was having renovations done when we were looking around and creating an accessible room with a full wet room. The wet room also meant that we would have 2 accessible toilets on site, a standard accessible toilet and a full wet room that would allow for a hoist. We also kept this room open throughout the day as a quiet room for anyone who needed it. Where we could get ready. We really wanted to get ready on site so that we wouldn't be stressing about getting to the location once we were ready, or we might have some transport issues or anything making us late on the day. We wanted a step-free space to be able to get ready in that would accommodate the 2 other wheelchair users who were part of the bridal party. This was the area that many venues would trip up on because many of the bridal suites were upstairs with no other option to get ready anywhere else on site. Luckily for us, Brookfield has an accessible room, which we just spoke about, and we requested to use the accessible room to get ready in. The couple who were getting married the day before us actually decided not to use the accessible room in the end for the accommodation, so we were able to use it from 9 AM. What to wear? Now, I was very silly on my wedding day and I wore the most ridiculous dress ever. It was a big, flowy rainbow wedding dress, which I couldn't really move around in my chair without help anyway. However, do what I say and not what I do, and get an outfit that you are able to navigate around in when using your mobility aids, please. I did, however, wear a different dress for our legal ceremony, as we actually got married legally in the morning before we did our big ceremony with all our family and friends. I also got changed again into the evening in an evening dress for our first dance, which we did an adapted version of Harry Styles's Treat People with Kindness. And of course, I needed to move around freely for that. Brookfield has a very big car park, but as you can see, it's on gravel, which isn't the most accessible for all wheelchair users. But not to worry, because they also have a top car park, which is actually paved with concrete, which is where wheelchair users can park up and get out with lots of space, not needing to worry about getting stuck in the gravel. Weather safe. So this is less an accessibility requirement and more of just a requirement for anyone ever getting married. But we wanted to have a venue that offered both an inside and outside option to be able to get married in, because we really wanted to get married outside, but we didn't want to be worried about the weather turning on us and ruining the whole day. Annoyingly, it did actually end up raining on our wedding day.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
And we're going to talk about what we did on the actual day a little bit later on in the video. The other reason that we wanted to have an outside wedding was because some of our guests attending are immunocompromised and COVID is still around. So having an outside wedding would reduce the spread. And I mean, look at this outside space, it's absolutely beautiful. Before we continue, I wanted to thank my Patreons for requesting this video and giving me talking points to focus on throughout. Patreon, which I call mine the Radiant Rainbow Club, is how I'm able to fund videos like these. It's a place to meet like-minded people, get access to loads of cool content like early access to YouTube videos, access to short form drafts that I end up just never posting online, access to chats feature to be able to meet other Patreons, and a way to meet like-minded people, and also you'll be able to directly support my work. If you'd like to sign up and support my work, you can do via the link in the description, and I'm currently running an offer that the first 60 paid members will get access to this super cool, cute rainbow shark pin, so don't miss out and sign up below. Ceremony and reception all in one place. Similar to how we wanted to get ready on site, we also wanted to have our reception and ceremony all in one place, so that we didn't need to worry about moving to another location or there being any issues with transport or guests getting lost or anything like that. So it was very important to us to have everything all in one place. This was an accessibility requirement that many venues were able to accommodate, as it's fairly common in the UK to have a ceremony area and a reception area all on one site. Food allergies. Many of our guests had allergies, and some of those allergies were very, very serious and needed to be met. When we were looking around the different venues and speaking to the teams, we made it very clear that many of our guests had different allergies and dietary needs, and we would speak to the team about how they would manage this to ensure that our guests would have a safe experience and would feel comfortable on the day. Many different teams, we just felt were not careful enough with our guests' allergy precautions. However, at Brookfield, we had a clear allergy precaution in place from the start, along with physical markers that were put on each dinner place that showed that the person had allergies and what those allergies were. We also had a staff member come around on the day to double check each person's allergies to make sure that we hadn't missed any. COVID precautions. As I mentioned before in the video, we had a few people attending that are immune compromised, and we wanted to put some COVID precautions in place. We decided not to have a mask wedding, as many of our guests also relied on lip reading. However, any of the guests that felt more comfortable in a mask were welcome to wear one. We planned an outside wedding, as this would have meant that there wouldn't have been any big crowds or people in one room. But unfortunately, it did end up raining on the day. So instead, we had a wedding that was inside in the main hall, but we put the immunocompromised people at the front next to a big open window. We also always had an outside area available at all times, and we asked guests to test before attending. Space to move around. When you have lots of wheelchair users in one room, it can become very difficult to move around, and even more so when you have multiple people and multiple wheelchair users all in one place. So we wanted to make sure that our venue had lots of space to move around. Many places that we had a look at did have very limited space, which would have made it very difficult having so many wheelchair users there. We wanted to make sure that all wheelchair users attending could move around and not feel worried that they were in the way, which they were definitely not at all. So we loved that Brookfield had loads of outside space, a bar area and a large main hall where we had our wedding in the end and our wedding breakfast. There was plenty of space space to be able to move around and move around the tables so that everyone could move around freely without getting worried that they were going to get stuck.
Voiceover Eliza here, as we messed up the audio on this camera as it was our first time using it, so you're just gonna have to cope with voiceover me. Wanting to feel normal. I wanted to feel normal on my wedding day, and that was an access need that was very important for me. I didn't want to be worrying about access on the day or having to go through the back by the bins to get into the building or anything like that. I just wanted me and all the other wheelchair users attending to just feel like every other guest, which of course they are. And this was what Brookfield offered us: somewhere to stay, space to move around, same entrances as everybody else, and at no point did I feel like a burden. Overall, we just had the best day filled with so much joy.
So that is how we planned an accessible wedding for me as a wheelchair user and all my guests who were wheelchair users, and we had such a lovely day. If you have planned an accessible wedding, please let me know how you did it down below, or if you have any questions about weddings and accessibilities, let me know and I'll do my best to answer them. Don't forget, the first 60 paid members of my Patreon are going to be getting this Sharky pin. It's really cute. All the details are in the description down below. If you like this video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and you can follow me across other socials, which are at Disabled Eliza. Thank you so much to Brookfield Barn for letting us film here today, and if you are looking for an accessible wedding venue in West Sussex, we definitely recommend it. We loved it. We had the best wedding. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.